Welcome back to the SENWA studio out here at Optus Stadium. It's cloudy outside at the moment, but we're expecting a maximum temperature of 26 degrees later in the day. Quick text coming through on the Harvey Norman Busselton text line from Anton. Hi, Duff. Luke Hodge, of course, who expressed those opinions on Harley Reid, is ex-Hawthorn. Conspiracy theory alert. Yep, all the experts have a team, and sometimes it does colour their opinions. But someone whose opinions are not coloured at all, Guardian Australia's sports columnist Jonathon Horn joins us on the show. Jonathan, welcome.
Good morning, Duff. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, mate. Question, are you going to Adelaide for Gather Round?
I'm scheduled to, mate, but I've the perils of having a toddler, the joys and perils of having a toddler means that the plans, if I do go, it'll be a very sort of last-minute decision. So it's still up in the air at the moment. It's very much dependent on sleep and things of that nature.
If you went, would you drive or fly?
Oh, I'd be flying. I'd be no good on a, what is it, from Melbourne, I think 6.5, 7 hours. Yeah, that would break me, I think. So I'm getting pretty soft the older I get. So yeah, I'd definitely be on a plane if I go.
Mate, let me get the world's smallest violin out for you. 6.5 to 7 hours. I mean, please, we drive further than that in Western Australia to go get the groceries during the week. I mean, come on, harden up, Jonathan.
You sound like my partner, Duff. I hear it a lot.
Hey, big news overnight. Will Day, of course, the Hawthorn midfield star, a navicular, may not play again this year. This is the second year in a row Will Day's had a season badly affected by injury. How much of a concern is it for the Hawks?
It is, because he's such a good player, and he's found his feet, well, so to speak, this year. But, you know, it's that same injury I remember when James Hird had that back in the late 90s, I think, just before they won that flag. And I think I heard him say last night that he essentially lost 3 years of his career to that injury. And, you know, in hindsight, given, you know, sports science and things back then, he did so well to get back to the player that he was after that. So, yeah, it's a real shame. He's so, obviously Hawthorn did really well without him last year. But, you know, he would have been handy in that semi-final if he had played, and who knows how far they could have gone with him. So, yeah, it's a huge blow for Hawthorn.
So we've seen Sam Mitchell restructure groups of players very well. You mentioned Hawthorn played very well without Will last year. We also saw him restructure the Eagles midfield without Nick Nat-Nui and Andrew Gaff in 2018 when he was the midfield coach, and they still won the flag. But how big a blow would it be to the Hawks, do you think, if there's no Will Day?
I think one thing, like you say, Mitchell's such a smart coach at sort of manoeuvring and just... But one thing that Hawthorn have that other clubs, certainly a lot of other Melbourne clubs don't have at the moment, is depth. He's got, you know, Mitchell just, the talent, saying the 28th, 29th, 30th player on his list is almost better than any other club. And he has a way of, you know, guys like Josh Ward can just step up and take on that role. And they're such an even team. They're not a team that's dependent on a superstar. I'm not sure Will Day would qualify as a superstar, but yeah, I think if anyone can cover it, it's Hawthorn. If you watch their VFL team, and generally, like you said, Mitchell has a history of being able to sort of work his way around these setbacks.
Obviously, the other news to come out yesterday was the multiple contract offers the Eagles have put to Harley Reid. What is likely to transpire from this? Do you think that Harley will change tack and sign with West Coast sooner, or do you think this is likely to run a course through the course of the season?
Look, obviously you guys in the West are very much more on top of this. The sense that I get is that Harley isn't there for the long haul, and that... You know, that could be, that whether that's sort of a correct reading of the landscape over there right now, that I don't think that a decision will be made. I think it'll be later rather than sooner if a decision is made, and it sort of makes it hard on everyone involved. So yeah, it's a really, really hard one to read, Duff. I don't feel that I'm looking at a young footballer who is looking to stay there long term. I'm not sure whether that qualifies as a flight risk or however you want to put it. So yeah, I I would be surprised if that all that is tidied up and clarified within the next few weeks.
It's an interesting one because we've kind of viewed Harley as different to other people, but I'm not sure there are many players in the AFL at the moment who aren't flight risks at some stage during the course of their career. We're looking at Oscar Allen, who may leave West Coast if there's a better contract, a longer contract offer from an East Coast-based club. We saw Lachie Neale leave Fremantle. He basically viewed Perth at home by the stage he left to go to Brisbane, and then he wanted to come home again at one stage as well. So, Chad Warner, long talks with him. Cozzy Pickett talks with him. I think player movement is a reality of the modern game. It's interesting that we tend to view Harley as one out of the box. I wonder if West Coast gets a better contract offer in front of Harley than other teams come up with, whether Harley may stay at least in the short term. He's managed by the Paul Connors stable. It's not Paul Connors in person. Obviously, it's one of his underlings. But Paul Connors' view has always been that a draftee should give a club 4 to 5 years service before he goes. So I'd be fascinated to see if maybe at least a short-term offer may be accepted by Harley if it's a good one from West Coast.
That's the thing. It feels like that he's at that stage where the short-term offer might be the best option. I mean, you look at, say, hypothetically, Rowell and Anderson, who both came out of the same school in Melbourne and who Gold Coast have done remarkably well so far to sort of keep hold of. Obviously, they have different factors and advantages at play up there in terms of keeping those two players. But I think the initial optimism that you spoke of about, that when you draft a kid from Melbourne to Perth, I think the Gold Coast example maybe had swayed things into people thinking, well, this can work, and that these kids can stay if we provide the right environment and if the team is going well. And obviously that's not the situation at the moment with Reid, and that's what complicates it so much.
Yep, it's an interesting one, and it'll unfold over the coming weeks and months. Oscar Allen, how was the whole saga viewed from the East Coast, and what do you think unfolds there? I get the feeling that the Eagles are prepared to be pragmatic about other contract offers to Oscar, and that if someone comes up with more and it puts West Coast in the frame for Band 1 compensation and a top 5 draft pick, that they will be not pushing him out the door, but they will be open to losing him. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think more generally about what happened in the last 7 days or so, obviously the press conference was just farcical in a way, personally. I thought it was just really poorly handled, but in terms of sheeting home blame and people saying they're embarrassed and ashamed and things like that, I mean, Hawthorn seemed to have just got out of this scot-free, the way that they sort of just swanned into town and did what they do. I mean, it's almost as if, well, you guys are fine, you guys can do whatever you want. And also his management, hasn't been a lot spoken about his management and sort of the way he was thrown to the wolves in that regard. So putting aside that press conference, I can't see that he would be the right mix in the Hawthorn forward line, the way things stand. I feel like he would be a better mix with what Brisbane's current setup is. So it'd be interesting to see how things play out there, particularly with Hawthorn, with Mitch Lewis, who they absolutely just rate so highly at Hawthorn and are itching for him to get back on the park. But like I said before, Mitchell's a pretty strategic, shrewd operator in this space. So he very much knows the player he's looking at. Had a torrid game on Sunday. He's playing on Sam Taylor. I thought he had a crack early, Oscar. I thought he was quite competitive in the first half, in particular against what's a really good backline. But it's. I actually think the way the Eagles are handling this, apart from that press conference, is that they're pretty clear about what they think he's worth and what they're prepared to pay. Obviously, clubs are going to pay well over the odds of that. And I think West Coast have got to hold pretty firm to that. And to their credit, I just think that they could have everyone could have handled that press conference a lot better.
I think so. The idea of holding the press conference is fine. The word that really bothered me is ashamed. He's got nothing to be ashamed about. And you're absolutely right about Hawthorn. There was no need for Hawthorn to come to Perth and run the risk of being caught out to talk to Oscar Allen. You can have a Zoom meeting. They could have caught up with him in Gather Round. There was just no need for Sam Mitchell to make that trip, be seen at the airport. Obviously, they supposedly had pizza at Oscar Allen's house, but it spilled into the public arena. That was damaging for Oscar. So Oscar's duty is to himself and to the West Coast Eagles Football Club. Hawthorn's duty was to their own football club, but also to Oscar. And to me, they failed in their duty to Oscar very, very badly in the way they went about that. So the fact that they've skated on that is a little bit, I don't know, disappointing. And I think you're right. Oscar's management should have been smarter as well and should have said, no, let's not do it here. Let's have a quiet catch-up and gather round, or let's do it over Zoom. All these things are possible now. With the humiliation that Oscar suffered last week was completely unnecessary, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Port Adelaide versus Hawthorn on Sunday night. That's the game I'm most looking forward to out of Gather Round. What's the one that's going to catch your attention?
I actually like watching the games at the suburban grounds during Gather Round. I think that they're so different, especially that Norwood Oval. So I'd always sort of tune into any of those games. But yeah, that's obviously the one that's been built up a long time out. It's actually a really interesting test of the Port still actually have that fire to actually play for Kenny, because that's sort of been the key to his coaching, I guess, over the years, is that they've very much been a team that plays on emotion and a team that can, you know, very sort of offensively strong and very much a team that plays for the coach. But once that goes, they look like a really ordinary team. So it will be interesting to see if he can get them up for this game. Because if he can't get them up for this game, you almost feel, well, apart from say a showdown, which they always naturally get up for, what is there any fire still there at Port Adelaide? Because it all looked pretty, you know, they just looked like a team that was going through the motions for a lot of that game against St Kilda. They caught fire a bit at the end, I thought, and suddenly, you know, in moments like that, you realise there's still a lot of talent there. And once that midfield gets cracking, they still have it there. But look, it'll be interesting. I don't think Hawthorn is going as well as the four wins, 0 losses would indicate. I think there's just a lot of what Mitchell says sort of indicates that, you know, we're far from the finished product at the moment. There's a lot that we're doing wrong. So there's just that sense, especially now with Will Day out, that Hawthorn can be got at, I think. The way they were in that final, obviously it was a really close game, but that was an unexpected result. You know, and if they can sort of bring that kind of hyper pressure, which is probably what Hawthorn's susceptible to, I think. I think they could sort of give it a shake. But like I said, if they can't, you just feel like that's sort of the end of the road for the Hinckley era. If they can't get up for a game like that, I'm not sure they can get up for much else.
Noah Bolter has served a 4-week suspension imposed by the club after the off-season assault, which he's pleaded guilty to. I think most of us have seen the footage now. It's very, very concerning footage in terms of Noah's behaviour during that incident. Should Noah Bolter play this weekend, given that he's awaiting sentencing for an offence that, if worst-case scenario, basically carries a jail term of up to 5 years?
Yeah, I don't think he should be. I think I'm old enough to remember what happened to David Hooks. I think that was in 2004. You know, this is a competition that will suspend people for 3 weeks for an accidental tackle that ends in a concussion. And if someone's caught on film out in a pub car park lining someone up from, 20 metres away, and you're a person the size of Noah Bolter, and you have a public profile like Noah Bolter, think the suspension that he got from the club was pretty generous. I think Richmond, in a way, to their credit, have been pretty cautious about when he will come back. There is talk, and I can't really see this playing out, but there's talk that he's going to line up for the Richmond reserves team against a team of under 18 players on the weekend, because I can't imagine being a sort of talented year 11 or year 12 student in a game like that, and suddenly you find yourself lining up on Noah Bolter. I just think, for so many reasons, that would be wrong.
Yeah.
I think that the AFL, we've seen in different circumstances, when players get in trouble with the law, it's handled very differently to what the NRL do. And I think in this instance that most people would look at what has happened, and to everyone who's seen the footage, there's something fundamentally wrong, I think, if a player can come back so soon after an incident like that.
Jonathan, I hope you go to gather round, mate, and I hope you have a great time, and hopefully the grand finale to it all, the Hawks versus Port, is an absolute cracker. Thanks for joining us on the show. Look forward to chatting to you again.
Good on you. Thanks, Dave.
Jonathon Horn, of course, from Guardian Australia. He's a sports columnist with The Guardian. 0487 736 736. That is the Harvey Norman Busselton text line. Should Noah Bolter play against the Dockers this weekend in the Barossa Valley? What do you think? We'll be back with more after the break.